Hey guys, it's Kathleen here, and today I'm going to be talking about Bioshock Infinite. Now, I was planning on doing a video on the ending, but when I was planning that video, I realized that I was just quoting many videos that I'd watched before that explained the ending and the theory of the ending in a way that I appreciated. And so I'm just going to put a few videos in the description of videos that I appreciated that talked about the ending and talked about the complexities of that. So that being said, this video is going to include some serious spoilers. So if you haven't played Bioshock Infinite, please play the game. It's an amazing game. If you haven't played it, check out my spoiler-free Bioshock Infinite review. This is going to be for those of you who have played the game and know about this story and about all the twists. If you don't know anything about my character analysis series, basically I'm a literature major, which means that I sit on a daily basis and analyze literature and film, and I basically examine all the individual components that make up that storyline, whether it be through literature or film. And I examine the symbolism, the illusions, the reoccurring themes within a work, and I analyze all of those as individual components, and I use those individual components to prove some certain point about the story itself. So that being said, by my goal in using that same process to examine a video game is to prove that video games are just as capable of being analyzed and are therefore just as rich as just as rich of an art form as literature and film. So I'm going to use that process for a game that I think deserves it the most, which is Bioshock Infinite, which is to me one of the greatest proofs that video games can be an art form and are an art form in certain cases. So with that, here is my Elizabeth character analysis.
Take me back. Take me home. Please.
So the reason why I decided to talk about Elizabeth is she experiences some of the most drastic change in this story. She goes from being the damsel in distress trope that we're very, very familiar with, and not only that, but being this damsel in distress, but also being this character of innocence that is so reoccurring in the Bioshock story, to this character that we depend on in combat and is fully capable of defending herself, to a character that is godlike and almost terrifying. And so when talking about her character, I'm of course going to talk about all these changes that she goes through. And I'm first going to examine the character development of her innocence, or the theme of her innocence, which is really, really crucial when relating to Bioshock, all of the Bioshock stories that are in, Bioshock 1, 2, and Infinite, and possibly all of the Bioshock stories to come. So in the first few minutes that we see Elizabeth, they portray her as a very innocent character. She's wearing a schoolgirl uniform. She's prancing around her tower and singing. So we definitely have this Disney-esque thing going on. And then we have the moment on the beach, which is one of my favorite moments. That moment where she's running around the beach, we really understand that this character has never experienced life.
Hello. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, come dance with me, Mr. Twin.
I don't dance. Come on, let's go.
Why? What could be better than this?
she is innocent because she's young, but she's also innocent because the only way that she's experienced life is through books. The only way she's heard about beaches and having conversations with real people other than the songbird is through books. But it's almost heartbreaking because we know that in those few moments that she has to actually experience being a kid, it's overtaken within a few minutes with battle and combat and violence. When we first experience combat with her, she is noticeably shocked by violence.
When you did that, they're all dead. You killed those people.
Elizabeth.
You're a monster.
So Elizabeth is portrayed to us as this innocent character, and for me, what really grabbed me in these moments was when her overwhelming excitement about literally everything. I mean, she just wandered around Colombia just absorbing everything and asking questions about everything and saying, hey, I read about that in a book, I read about that in a book. And it's shocking how much she doesn't know about the world, and it's devastating that she has to get shoved into this violent atmosphere before she even gets to experience her childhood. And let's look at Bioshock 1 again. And that theme of lost innocence. The little sisters are characters that did not get to experience their childhood, were shoved into being basically a way of managing the economy for Rapture, because they'd harvest Adam and were just manipulated and used for that.
It's better than great. Look, Mr. Bubbles.
The reason why Bioshock is so emotionally compelling is because of that difference between that very sharp contrast between the violent atmosphere that you're experiencing and the innocence of the character that you are striving to protect. And that is why Bioshock is so brilliant, because that harsh contrast between a character that is innocent and should not be in a violent atmosphere and the very, very violent and horrific atmosphere that you're encountering, and noticing and just that heartbreak of seeing that character being shoved into that atmosphere is why this story is so compelling.
Do you understand the expense the people went through to keep you locked up in that tower? You think people like that are just gonna let you walk away? You are an investment, and you will not be safe until you are far away from here.
Now, often when we see this theme of innocence in any type of story, that's often followed by lost innocence. And this is supposed to be, this moment of lost innocence is often a growing point for a character, but it can also be a point of corruption for a character. Now, I've been calling Elizabeth a kid, and I know I think she's like 20 in the game, so it's weird that I'm calling her a kid since that's like 3 years younger than me. But through Booker's perspective, she pretty much is a kid. I mean, because she is his kid. So it's important that we see her through this childlike nature in the first few moments of the game in that sense, because we're playing as her dad. The moment of lost innocence is often a cathartic moment for a character. So I've been using a lot of English terms, but catharsis is basically a turning point in a story. It's literally called, it's like a baptism. It's a cleansing moment that after that moment the character learns a lesson that changes them, either for good or for bad. And this is introduced through many different characters. Booker actually experiences a catharsis, which I'm going to talk about later. But for Elizabeth, her catharsis, her turning point moment is there's two moments that I would refer to as being cathartic for her, as being a moment of lost innocence, which, you know, those two don't necessarily go hand in hand, catharsis and lost innocence, but this is what led to her catharsis. So sorry about all the terminology, but Elizabeth, when she has to murder, when she has to literally with her own hands murder, that is when I believe she literally, it is a turning point for her character.
Elizabeth.
I guess it runs in the family.
Elizabeth. Whoa, hey, easy.
She murders Daisy Fitzroy, and after that scene, she goes into a room, comes out with a different outfit, is literally shedding herself of her hair. Like, there's a literally shedding going on, which is figuratively an expression of her shedding her innocence and her youth.
Elizabeth.
This is all they had.
And in that moment, she is shocked into adulthood, you know? And that's why I'm referring to her as a kid in the beginning, because she was not an adult until that moment where she killed with her own hands, and she literally shed herself of her innocence. Because in that moment, she realized that when you lose your innocence, when you lose that youthful zeal for the world, you realize that the world is not as charming as you think it is. And that was her wake-up moment where she realized, hey, the world is really grim and messed up. And from that point on, she is definitely a little more, a little less, you know, perky and jovial. And from that moment on, it's like a downslope. She becomes more and more downcast, even sinister in her outlook on life.
Find Comstock.
Why?
You saw what he turns me into. I will not allow that.
And so what, you're going to kill him?
Is this where you start moralizing, Booker? You forget. I know you.
I'm not going to let you kill him.
Really? Booker? What are you going to do to stop me?
Not a damn thing. Because I'm gonna do it for you.
And there's another moment in the game which, in one universe, would lead to the complete corruption of her innocence and a complete corruption of her character. So it's important that she develops as a character, that she grows up in that moment of catharsis. But if that moment of catharsis is stretched too far, if she is abused too much, she will completely lose all of the valuable things that make us love who she is. So that moment, there is a negative catharsis that happens. There is a negative point in her life in one of the universes that revisit. And that's the universe where Booker does not arrive soon enough to keep her from being tortured for years and years and years.
The seed of the prophet shall sit the throne and drown in flame the mountains of man. Say what you will about Comstock. He was a hell of a fortune teller.
What we're really trying to fight is that complete corruption of her character. Because if her character is completely corrupted, she is going to destroy the planet. Or as far as we know, New York, which is the city she was bombing, when she gets tortured for years and years and years. So when we rescue her from being tortured, that scene was very hard for me to witness. What happened in that scene where we are rescuing her is she is physically abused and emotionally abused and berated of her innocence. And that scene was so disturbing to me, because they didn't show her being tortured very much, but you could hear her voice, and just the sounds of her struggling were very, very disturbing. Like, this is how messed up her situation was. Her father, her own father, physically, drained her of her powers and physically abused her. He didn't do it himself. He hired other people to do it. But he physically abused her for years just to get her power out of her. And what does this look like? The little sisters who became corrupted just so that we could get Adam out of them, just so that Rapture could get Adam out of them. And in a way, Comstock he's not a real father. He becomes like this imitation, corrupt, disgusting excuse for a father in that moment. Like, we are supposed to be so disgusted with him because of that scene.
The procedure should help immensely with the issues we've had with the girl. Once the device is implanted, any effort on her part to alter the state of things will emit a most painful electric shock. Pavlov made a dog salivate. We'll make this one weep.
And that one just sent chills down my spine, because if you really think about how awful the torture that she went through was, and how she literally creates nightmarish characters. The area that we go through when we're rescuing her in the universe where she's corrupted is actually a mental asylum. If you look at and you read some of the signs on the area that has the Boys of Silence, that's actually a mental asylum.
The lunatics are running the asylum. They don't even listen to me anymore.
The reason why Bioshock has an emotionally compelling element is because we are shown a character that is innocent, that we will want to protect. A character that it's not just about being, vulnerable and like, hey, I need someone to protect me. It's also about having characteristics that we want to preserve, because we want to preserve Elizabeth's passion for life. We want to preserve Elizabeth's characteristics and her mannerisms. That it's not just about us trying to protect her because she needs protection. She definitely doesn't need protection. But we want to preserve those aspects of her character that we have learned to love. And that in Bioshock 1, we wanted to preserve the little sisters, or maybe you killed them all, I don't know, but I wanted to preserve the little sisters because here I'm shown a character that is given an imitation father. And that this is the theme, an imitation father, real father. And here comes in my character, who becomes the real father for these little sisters. And you see that in the last moment of the game.
You gave them the one thing that was stolen from them. A chance. A chance to learn. To find love. To live. And in the end, what was your reward? You never said. But I think I know. A family.
When they really have a legitimate father, other than an imitation father that just exploits them for Adam. And that reoccurs in the second game.
Do you know why Eleanor brought you here? She wanted a father.
So now I'm going to talk about the end of the story, which I'm going to hopefully do. This video is already getting a little long, but this is a very complicated subject to talk about. So one thing that a lot of people got confused about with the ending is how the baptism scene kind of got rid of all of the other Comstocks and it solved all the problems. So basically, I'm gonna just briefly describe that there is constants and variables in this story. Now, constants are things that consistently occur in all of the different universes.
Constants and variables.
What?
There's always a man. There's always a city.
How do you know this?
I can see them through the doors.
So this isn't like other multi-universe stories. There are some things that happen in all the universes and some things that vary. Like, one thing that would vary would be whether or not Comstock is, or whether or not Booker is baptized. That is one thing that varies. And whether or not he's baptized says whether or not he continues to be Booker DeWitt or whether or not he becomes Comstock. Because if he gets baptized, he becomes Comstock. And the significance of this is, if you don't know anything about baptism and what that means, basically in the Christian tradition, and I know that there's different variants of that, so I hope that I don't offend anyone, but just briefly, in the Christian tradition, the belief is that Jesus embodies all of the sins of the universe, and that he dies with those sins and rises, and all of those sins are atoned for. So when someone converts to Christianity, the baptism is an expression of dying the same way that Christ did with all of the sins that you've committed, and then raising up a new person without those sins. So basically, it is an expression of you dying to the person you were before and becoming a new person when you rise out of the water.
Are you ready to be born again?
I am.
Do you hate your sins?
I do.
Do you hate your wickedness?
Yes.
Do you want to clean the slate, leave behind all you were before, and be born again in the blood of the Lamb? Jesus, wash this man clean.
The reason why that becomes, in this one instant, a constant, and why Booker is able to come in and die in that area of baptism and kill all of the other Comstocks, because this literally is an expression, like baptism itself is an expression of embodying all the sins that you have committed and rising up a new person. And the reason why Comstock is able to become a new person, now, often when people were baptized in this time, they were Christianed. They were given a new name. Often it was only a first name. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a last name, but that's probably was his own choice to give himself a new last name as well. But that's why Comstock became a different person. There are people that go through this conversion process and become a different person, for better or for worse. I know people that have converted to different beliefs and they've become amazingly aware of different issues that they weren't aware of before and very compassionate. But then there's other people that I know that converted to different religions and it was for the worst. And Comstock is one of those examples where it is for the worst. And the reason why it works that Booker was able to step in and die, and then he was risen again, as, you know, at the end, he wakes up and he's Booker and Comstock never exists, and Anna is in her crib, and the reason why that is able to work and why Comstock never kidnaps Anna is because that is what baptism is. Like that's why it works. It is a constant in that, like, Elizabeth comes in, she sees all of the different doors, she sees all the different variables, and this is why she's kind of terrifying. She becomes godlike in this moment, because she begins to see things that no one else can see. Like, she sees, like, everything in existence at this moment without the siphon limiting her.
I can see them through the doors. You, me, Columbia, Songbird. But sometimes something's different, yet the same.
Constants and variables.
Yes.
She is able to see that if he comes in and he dies in that moment, that will become a new constant. She, like, invents a constant in that moment. And so that's why it makes sense. She's literally inventing a constant. And that becomes a constant that reflects in all the different multi-universes or whatever. So I hope that makes a little more sense. But the interesting thing about this for Elizabeth's character is Booker gets to experience the true catharsis of the story. He dies and is risen again. He cleanses himself of all of the sins that he committed, and he becomes a new person. But Elizabeth, because of that catharsis that Booker experiences, never gets to exist. Because Anna gets to exist. But what made Elizabeth, what we wanted to preserve about Elizabeth, was her characteristics, her personality. The things that made her who she was completely because of Columbia. Because she got locked in a tower. That's why she was so smart and read books all the time. That's why she unlocked locks, and that's why she became who she was. Now, I believe that there's different theories about this. I believe that her powers, she only gets her powers through Columbia. Now, through the audio logs, it can be confusing how she got her powers. It is inferred that it's because of the experiments that they did on her, and that those experiments gave her the ability to open tears herself without the equipment to open tears, which they needed before. And part of the reason too is in another audio log that it says it's not so much about what she is, it's about where she came from.
What makes the girl different? I suspect it has less to do with what she is, and rather more with what she is not. A small part of her remains from where she came. It would seem the universe does not like its peas mixed with its porridge.
And I think part of it, because every person that's put in a different universe where they didn't come from, or a different multiverse or whatever, where they didn't come from, they adapt, they have to change in order to adapt to the shock of being in a place where you're not supposed to be, where you don't technically exist. One way we see this happen is through Lutece, and I had to look up their name because I couldn't think of their name. I can't believe that slipped my mind. But the Lutece twins, what happened there is Lutece, like the female Lutece, she began communicating with a male version of herself and brought that male version into her universe. And the only way that they could comprehend how that would work, like being in a universe where he didn't exist, the only way he could make sense of that is to make up a reality for himself.
Miss the girl. Wipe away the debt.
See, he's starting to put his story together.
Wipe away
You're quite fond of this theory,
He's manufacturing new memories from his old ones.
Well, the brain adapts.
I should know.
Bring us
I've
a girl.
lived it.
I think part of it might have been Elizabeth, because she was brought into that universe at a young age. Maybe that was part of the reason why she developed powers, and because of her exposure to the equipment. I think it's a lot of variables that could have led to her getting powers. If you have any more clarity on that, bring that in the comment section. I like getting corrected if I'm ever wrong, but I don't believe that she'll develop powers without being brought up in Columbia. That's my personal belief, that she won't have powers. So almost everything that made Elizabeth is gone because Columbia doesn't exist and because Comstock doesn't exist. And that is why this story is tragic, because Elizabeth will never exist, because all the things that would have existed to make her exist are horrific, and we have to get rid of those things. We have to get rid of Comstock. And it's really sad, you know? And that once I finished the story, I was just kind of shocked. And then I saw that Booker was alive and Anna was alive at the end after the credits, and I was like, oh, thank God. But now that I think about it, I realize how sad it is that Elizabeth will never exist because of this story. But the great thing about this is that in this story that they kind of set it up for so many different Bioshocks. Like all of those lighthouses were so many different Bioshocks ready to happen. Is this going to be a recurring theme? This innocent character and this other character that's supposed to protect the innocent character. Like, is there going to be this, like, father-daughter relationship and all of the stories that's what makes Bioshock what it is, honestly, is this family unit and this idea that there's a corrupt family unit and an imitation family unit, and a new father must step in and become the real father of the story. And that father is often a very broken, messed up character. And I could have even talked all about Booker, but this was mostly about Elizabeth because because it's just so sad that we spend so much time preserving her character and then she's gone. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. It's probably going to end up being really long because there were so many things that I had to cover. But thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, remember to subscribe so you can see more Bioshock and character analysis videos from me. And be sure to comment and, let me know all your awesome theories about the ending and the story, and let me know what you want me to do my next character analysis on. So thank you so much for watching. I should go. Near the 60% into the game, 70% in the game, I was like, what? What just happened? What just happened? I care about these characters so much and my heart is just breaking.